Today we are talking about Dharma, and it's a difficult story. For many years I was teaching and I did not really dare to talk about Dharma very much. And it's difficult from the start because I can't translate this word. This is quite impossible. We don't have this idea. We don't have this concept. You can name many words that come close to it, but still they do not really do honor to the concept of Dharma as it exists in Vedic philosophy. So that's why generally we just use the word Dharma, like also we may use the word karma, because also there we don't really have a word for it. Or we use the word yoga, which is also not our word. So, but we have no word for it. So this is another one of those things. And if you look at the Sanskrit meaning, literally, it means your support. Dharma is that which supports you and which you also can support. Both are there. So, you could say Dharma is the nature of things. Dharma is your natural role in the game. Dharma is the natural law behind everything. Dharma is in that way also a little bit like morality. But definitely there the idea does not come close at all. But definitely also for the reason that it comes close to morality, it's a difficult thing to talk about. Because here in the West we have a very difficult attitude towards morality. And so morality is part of how society thinks about what is right and what is wrong. In that way also morality is part of religion. And morality is also part of justice. So it's quite a complicated subject. But today I don't really want to talk about it in sense of society or justice or religion. I want to talk about it from the point of view of yoga, and then it becomes Dharma, and it really is not morality. So the way Dharma is used is like they will say, it is the Dharma of fire to burn. It is the Dharma of water to always seek the deepest point. And you can give many examples. It is the Dharma of a bird to fly. It is the Dharma of a student to learn. It is the Dharma of a teacher to teach. It is the Dharma of a father to take care of his child. All these things are natural. They belong to the role. They belong to the particular place that you have or anything has within the universe. So, in that way, it is a bit of a morality, but quite clearly also, it is not a morality which can be imposed from above. Today I will not tell you, Dharma is this, and you can only do this and you cannot do that. This is not how Dharma works. Dharma depends on so many things. Dharma depends on your age. The Dharma of a child is different from the Dharma of a young guy, is different from the Dharma of a middle-aged guy, is different from the Dharma of an old man. And likewise the Dharma of men and women may be different. And Dharma depends on your country. And Dharma depends on the season. And Dharma depends on the weather. And on the time of the day. And on a million things. On everything. Actually, Dharma means that you are in harmony with everything, but since everything always changes, in that way also Dharma always changes. So, it is difficult, and we will look a little bit what is the universal Dharma, because we can talk about that and find something to learn. But the basic thing is that Dharma is also Suddharma, meaning your own Dharma. your personal dharma, your individual dharma, and that's the main issue. That's the main problem, I would say, that all the time in your life you are facing choices. And you have to choose either this or that, and you are wondering which is right and which is wrong. That is the main thing we are talking about today, how to do that. How to know what is your dharma at any given time, in any given situation. So, and then there's a little story my teacher used to tell, which also explains very well how dharma is not a morality that is the same for everybody. So, as the story goes, there's a saint, and he is taking a bath in the holy river Ganga. Probably, I don't know if it's Ganga, but very often it could be Yamuna or some other river. So he is taking his bath in the river, and a little further upstream there is a tree with overhanging branches. And on those branches there is a scorpion. And suddenly the wind blows, which is the dharma of the wind, to blow. And the scorpion loses its balance and falls in the water. And since it is upstream from the saint, it comes floating towards the saint. And the saint picks it up in his hand, wanting to save it from drowning, and starts walking towards the shore. And on the shore, his student is there, guarding his clothes. It's a typical thing to do if you are a student. And the student sees what is happening, and he shouts to the saint, "Baba, throw him away, he will sting you." And indeed, the scorpion already is like a little bit again gaining consciousness, since he is out of the cold water, and is starting to raise his tail to sting. And then the Baba says, well, it is the dharma of the scorpion to sting, but it is the dharma of the saint anyhow to save him. So this explains what dharma really is a very good story to understand it. It depends. It depends on who you are. It depends on where you are. So that is dharma, and we also know that actually here that dharma or morality depends on the situation. Like say you have a tiger and you feel like, he's eating sheep and deer and whatever, and you don't really like that because you think that's like a problem for these animals, and you will try to make him a vegetarian because of your feeling of compassion for the animals that he has to kill. But this is quite clearly going against dharma. The dharma of the tiger is to kill. The dharma of the tiger is to eat meat. That is his natural role. And if you start making a vegetarian out of him, then probably he is going to become ill, but also he is not going to fulfill his natural role in the environment, and suddenly, you have so many deer that they have to start dying from some other thing. Like maybe they will develop some disease or something because, there has to be a tiger, who keeps like population in check. So this is another way to explain it. And so if we say the dharma is not to kill, then it's quite clear that there are exceptions. Right? And well, what about carrots? We talked about that when we talked about food and vegetarianism. No? Carrots also don't really appreciate being eaten. So, this is not so easy morality. And then you can say, well, dharma certainly is not to steal. But then we have Robin Hood, who was stealing from the rich to give to the poor who are being oppressed by the rich, and everybody thinks he's a great guy and a big hero, and we think his stealing is a good thing. So dharma is not so easy. And we have a big problem with it because of the past. And I think with Christianity in our past as the main dominant culture, we've had quite our share of problems with morality, but it's true for most cultures and most religions and most political systems of the past that morality has been abused to keep people under control, to impose indeed a strict set of moral rules and then either punish very severely by law whoever transgresses these rules, or maybe promise those people who do burning in hell forever, or something like that. So, and then also, of course, there's a lot of hypocrisy in such a situation, and those rulers do not also always follow the same rules that they are imposing upon others. So that is why today we find ourselves in a situation where there is not so much morality anymore, where actually it is quite cool not to be a moral person, to be like a little bit selfish. And of course here also, if somebody does something like good, then people appreciate it. But the moment that person starts making it into a philosophy to be good, then they say, oh, don't start with that, we've had that for 2,000 years, so don't impose anything on us. So we have a very difficult attitude towards it. And actually this has been predicted in ancient Vedic scripture thousands of years ago. The Kali Yuga would come, and this also a little bit explains actually the view of Hinduism on Dharma, in the sense that in the first age, the age of truth as it is called, Satya Yuga, then they said that Dharma was like a bull standing on 4 legs, and so Dharma was secure. But then in the next yuga already 1 leg was lost, and so the bull had to try to stand on 3 legs, which is still quite possible but a little more difficult. And then next age again 1 leg went, so already then the bull had to stand on 2 legs, very difficult. And then this age came, Kali Yuga, where the bull lost another leg and had to stand only on 1 leg. So you can imagine a bull standing on 1 leg, that's not a lot of Dharma which is left. And it is quite clearly said there that it is the leaders of the country who in Kali Yuga will corrupt morality by imposing it upon their people without themselves following it. This is quite clearly said, among many other things, that we would pollute the environment, and that we would be very materialistic and all these things. This is written in ancient scripture that this would come. So this is the situation where we are today. And the main misuse that has been made of morality is the whole idea that anybody can tell you what to do. This is the main problem. Morality, moral rules were said to come directly from God, written in scripture, or maybe whispered in the Pope's ear or some local priest's ear, whatever, but not in your ear. And so this is the main issue, which we have to understand that this happened. We have to understand that this has very much created our attitude against morality, and that we have to a little bit forget about that, leave that aside as something of the past, and have a look in a new way on morality or Dharma. And but then, if Dharma is not coming from God, then we can ask ourselves, okay, where then does it come from? And well, the truth is, it does come from God, but not in the way that it has been said to be before. And now I have to talk a little bit on who is God in the first place, because well, some people have already heard my stories about it, but we have to make it clear for everybody. And it's not so easy to make it clear in just a couple of minutes, but it's still quite possible also. Because God is a simple concept, and I think I can easily convince any atheist about the existence of God, if he just has the right kind of idea or definition of it. So basically everybody will agree that we are conscious of things, right? At the moment you are conscious of what I'm talking about, but you could also be conscious about the bottle, or you could be conscious about some sound, or you could be conscious about this and that. So we are conscious about things, that is quite obvious. And then the interesting question to ask, and which is of course very central in yoga, is, okay, what if we are conscious but not about something? What if we are conscious without being conscious about something? What if we are just conscious about maybe being conscious but nothing more than that? So, a little difficult to imagine for most people, yes, but still, if you have a little experience in meditation, you know that this kind of consciousness also exists. That in meditation you are still very much awake, even though you are no longer focused on any particular object. And so then we can find a kind of pure consciousness, untainted by whatever object it observes, but pure as it is. And then we discover something quite unique. We discover that we, in our deepest selves, are actually quite happy and peaceful, and for the rest, nothing much can be said about it. For the rest, we cannot really define very much how this consciousness is. It just is. And it doesn't wonder about it, it does not think about it, it just is, and that's about all there can be said about it in a sense. But the one thing that this means is that my pure consciousness and your pure consciousness and your pure consciousness and everybody's pure consciousness, if we compare it to each other, then we can find no difference. Because it all is quite peaceful and happy, and for the rest it has no shape, no age, no color, no sound, nothing is there. It is quite clearly there, but it is without form. It is without particular property. So in that way we can see that in essence we are all one. We are all the same. And okay, then I'm going a little fast now, but you look into the eyes of a pig and you wonder how he is doing, and if he can be there, conscious, instead of being conscious about what he is eating, he is not conscious about anything, but he is still conscious, then same thing you will find there. And if you find it in a pig, you will find it in a fish. And if you find it in a fish, you will find it in some small, animal living in the water, and then you can find it in a bacteria. And you can find it then also in plants, why not, And so, you find this consciousness everywhere. So then you say, okay, this consciousness is not individual consciousness, but it is cosmic consciousness. So, and okay, then you say that's God. That's just a name you give to it, right? But so if I talk about God, you have to understand this is how I talk about it. So, now, we were wondering, where does this Dharma come from? Where does this idea of good and bad come from? Well, actually, it does not come from this pure consciousness. Obviously not. It has no idea about it. It has no opinion about it. It doesn't think. It is non-dual consciousness. It is beyond all duality. It is beyond right and wrong and black and white and big and small and old and young and all these dualities. It is completely beyond it. So, when I say that Dharma can still be found there, it is not inside the self, inside pure consciousness, that we will find this idea of right and wrong. It is only in relation to the self, to this pure consciousness, that we can find it. Because when pure consciousness then finds expression, when we can start living from this pure consciousness, when we can start acting in a way that comes right, from inside, right from the heart, then we experience that only love comes out, compassion, beauty, all these beautiful things then come out. They are not actually there inside. There inside is nothing. And precisely because there is nothing particular, what comes out is very beautiful. And the reason for it is union. The self is very aware, without thinking about it, of the fact that everything is one. that everything is this pure consciousness, that if from the self, like words come through your mind and through your tongue and through your mouth to some other being, that this other being is actually also you. That is very obvious from the self. So out of the self come all these beautiful things, not because they are in there, it is through the interaction of this pure consciousness with the energy from which this universe is made. Then that comes out. So the self is basically desireless. It does not have any desires. It has no wants, because anyhow it cannot change. It has no form, so it cannot change. It always remains the same. So what could it desire? Nothing. Whatever comes out is pure, selfless. So in that way, and because of the truth of union that is so apparent to it, what comes out is love. What comes out is union. What comes out is harmony. What comes out is Dharma. And for the self, this is not morality, because the self does not think like that. If it would think, it doesn't even think. But even if it would think, it would never think like that. For the self, this love that comes out is without question, because there's nothing else. There's no alternative. Yes? This union, there's no alternative. It can't think in a different way. It only comes out like that. So, but there comes an idea of right and wrong from our perspective. We, from our duality, from our dual mind, our left and right brain, for starters, we have many dualities inside us. From our own duality, in contact with the self, then we see, there is right and there is wrong. So, it comes from there, but actually it does not come from there. That's what I'm saying. It's a little like strange. But in any way, because the truth, the ultimate reality is union, that also means that the truth is Dharma. That yoga is Dharma. That doing yoga means following Dharma. This is very, very clear. And the opposite of it, adharma, going against Dharma, means to go against the truth, to go against union, to go against love, to go against the self, to go against yourself. And it's the ego. So, I said we were a little bit going to look for some universal law well, that's it. Love is the universal law. Because it's the truth. It's the only existing thing. So, union, unity, in diversity, we have to say, is the universal law of Dharma. But how you interpret is your own problem. What you do with it is your own problem. And precisely also because, as I said, it is union in diversity. If it would be pure union, then there really would be no visible difference between any of us. Let's say we would all look the same, think the same, do the same thing, and then there would be no game, right? The game of life, the lila of life, the play of energy, the play of form, is for entertainment. So it's not really very important. The union is much more important than that. But still also this diversity has its role to play, has its meaning, has its value. So union in diversity is the truth, union in diversity is Dharma, and sometimes you have to a little bit choose between union or diversity, between the whole and yourself. So we will talk about how to do that. And actually, while we can talk about it, it is very vital to understand that thinking about it is not going to help. You cannot reason out your morality. Usually when people are reasoning, about morality, they are just looking for excuses. Morality or Dharma is something that you feel in your heart. You come in front of a certain choice. In your heart, everybody knows what is right and what is wrong. And then you choose, and well, if you choose wrong, then you probably start thinking about it and find some really good excuses. But so that's not how to do it. I'm not saying you can never think about it. That can also help a little bit in the process. But basically, it is that when you face a choice like that, you have to just for a moment be a little quiet and feel what you should do, and then you will feel it. And this is also something, of course, which has to grow. The connection that you have to the self, the connection that you will have to your heart, is very much going to define how easy it is to do that. But even the worst criminal, he can do that. And he knows it. Only that connection there is so small, so short, so little, has so little power compared to the big ego that is there, that it is like going by unnoticed and the guy just goes on doing something he knows is wrong. So this is also true for us. It is our relationship between our ego, our stories in our mind, and the self and the heart, which defines what happens. And if we are very much caught up in what we want and what we need and in our plans and projects, then very easily we can not listen to our heart. And if we are quite, into yoga, into the feeling of the self as much as we can, then also very easily we will find what to do, and not just in the sense of right and wrong, but also in the sense of a pure intuition, an intuitive way, a natural way of living without too much thinking and doing just what needs to be done with what comes to you. And then we can wonder, well, is it important? Well, because most people in society here, they feel like, even talking about this subject is like a little too much. So trying to live it, trying to listen to your heart, is it important? Well, yes. For your smile, it is very, very important. For your happiness, it is very, very important. For your inner peace, it is very, very important. The moment that you are making the choice that you know is wrong, you are cutting off your connection from your heart. You are saying no to yourself. You are pushing it away. And you are running further into ego. So, in that way, it is really very important and very essential in yoga. And in that way, yoga really is Dharma. If you are continuously doing things, and you know it is wrong, but somehow or other you can't stop yourself, you know how it is, lack of control, lack of understanding, confusion, a bad day, whatever, and then, you will just move further in that direction until, you suffer so much that you come back. That's the game. Yeah. Let it be clear, all suffering is only of the non-self. In the self there is no suffering. All suffering is only of the non-self, of the ego. So all suffering will bring you back to the self. So be very happy if you are suffering. It is a very good thing.